Jimmy Powell in the studio in 1962, 50 years ago. Jimmy released the first ever Birmingham rock and roll single, the first Brumbeat single, if you like, on Decca Records, Sugar Baby. And how did you get from, you know, being this lad growing up initially in South Birmingham, then in Aston, to actually making and releasing a record? Because in those days, even now it's a big deal, in those days it must have been an even bigger deal.
Jack Good was touring the country looking for artists to go on one of his television shows, which was I think it was the old boy shows.
Oh yeah.
And down in the old ATV studios in Aston, he held auditions. We as the Berries went down as a band, and again, I mean, he was involved with Billy Fury and God knows what, and Cliff and all them solo artists, and he was interested in the solo artists. I had a bit of a different type of voice. I mean, according to Johnny Walker, my voice takes wallpaper off the walls, which is a good job really, because I'm now employed by about 14 painter and decorating companies. So I'm still earning a living, if you know what I mean.
But you have got a great, a true rock and roll, or even a bluesy sort of rasp to your voice. And hearing the track that we did, Sugar Baby, I was thinking of, you know, the early Spencer Davis group when Steve Winwood broke through. You know, you've got that same kind of attack about your voice there.
Yes, the blues had come out round about that time. I think that's what, first of all, Sugar Baby came in and came out. It was after that then that the blues started to take over as such, and Stevie and quite a number of those guys kind of fitted very nicely into that. My voice automatically went okay with that, and of course I did a lot of tracks. I even, going back to that My Boy Lollipop scenario, I did a couple of records with Island Records.
Yeah.
And the guy at Island Records, bless him, he said that
this is Chris Blackwell,
Chris
Chris
Blackwell at Island Records. I did I've Been Watching You and Strangers on the Train, I think, and That's All Right, which has got some harmonica in, and it was from that harmonica that he asked me to go down to London and do this backing for Millie. I took a very old promoter friend, and I'm sure a lot of people who remember those days will remember his name. He's unfortunately passed away now. His name was Mike Carroll. He was a super guy, and I took him down with me, and he did the backing clapping. Since then, all kinds of things have been said. I had Rod Stewart's with the band, and because it was with the band and I was in the studio, they thought it was Rod that was...
Yeah, for many years that was one of these great bits of pop trivia that Rod Stewart played the harmonica on My Boy Lollipop. He didn't, it was you.
No, that's right. And Rod has actually gone on record and said that himself. But then there was another guy...
Can I ask you about that, by the way? I mean, because that again was a breakthrough moment in pop. We're talking about the early 60s. I don't think any Jamaican artist had ever had a hit. Chris Blackwell brought her over to this country. You end up playing harmonica on it, you know, on what is a landmark pop record. Are you rolling in the royalties all these years on? Because it still gets played on the radio.
No. and I'll tell you what now.
Go on.
Half of the lads, the big boys as well, have not. I've been fighting at the moment because a lot of my stuff goes into compilations and this, that and the other, and nothing's ever come back, to be honest with you. I don't think the Berries have ever got paid for He's in Town and Poor Man's Son. I certainly know what I was told that some of the other big boys as well. I won't mention the names in case the information's wrong, but they haven't been paid. And of course the law's they're trying to stipulate now, the record companies, because a lot of them have been bought out.
Yes.
And the ones that have got the tracks now are trying to get away with it by saying you can only claim up to 6 years ago. Well, we're talking 1960 records, you know.
And I guess in those days, sadly, the idea that artists were ripped off was very much more just part of the fabric. You know, a lot of artists of your era made great records that sold colossal amounts and haven't got 2 80s to rub together.
I mean, Cliff was the first one in the record industry to get sixpence. Sixpence a copy. The first one ever to get sixpence a copy. They're all getting 80s and pennies and topsies if they were lucky.
Yeah. Nevertheless, though, you know, you are part of a true landmark piece of pop history by playing harmonica on My Boy Lollipop. And you mentioned that people for years thought that Rod Stewart had played the harmonica because he truly was in your backing band. Rod was a mere backing singer to you. How did that come about?
Well, we were doing the blues at the time. Rod was a bit of a folk guitar player, and he knew the my bass player, Louis Sonamo in them days, and he used to come to the gigs, and then he started to ask, could he get up? So yeah, okay, you can get up, and he get up and do some, and then it just kind of enfolded into the band. And what used to happen was the band used to start, and he used to go on and do some tracks, and then I'd go on and finish the show off, and it was that kind of thing. And he was with me for nearly 12 months. I mean, records say it was only months. It wasn't. It was nearly 12 months. We did the tour of Scotland, but what happened was when we came back from there, we'd been asked to do the first Chuck Berry tour. Chuck Berry at the time was phenomenally big, as you can imagine, and all the band wanted to back him, of course, and I'd got a tour down the southwest, Cornwall and wherever. And so I just said to the band, look, you know, I understand, guys, if you want to do it, you do it, and that's it. So they did, and I got another band.
And you
Rod went with him, but
you
he
had
did.
Contractual issues, did you? That meant you couldn't.
Which meant I couldn't do it. Yes,
yeah.
I mean I was contracted to play down south, so off I went. Rod didn't actually go there from then. I think once he was released, I think Long John Baldry caught sight of him, and then after that he went. I know then with John Baldry, and went with a few other bands, as you know.
And we've mentioned, you know, a couple of the names that you kind of quite glibly meant, you know, Rod and the Beatles. Take us back to the Beatles time, hanging around Hamburg. Was it obvious to you at that stage that the Beatles would become the phenomenon that they still are?
It came to me without a shadow of a doubt that they were going to be huge. They had the way of, they were doing the backing vocals like I'd never heard them before. It was American music. I mean, the thing with the Beatles was, because they were Liverpool people, they were getting all this stuff coming across from the States and whatever on the boats and playing it and getting on with it, and their choice of music was phenomenal. Did I know there'd be stars as I knew what a star would be there? Yes. And they deserve all they've got, to be honest with you.
Yeah. And how did you get on with them? You know,
knockout. Absolute knockout. I mean, they were just nice guys, just lovely guys. I've got photographs at home of me with them, but I'm saving them for the rainy day because they're probably worth a bottle.
But in the Star Club and such like. Yeah.
They were at the Star Club. I was at the top 10. But we all used to meet at the Seaman's Mission for breakfast. Every morning after we'd done the gigs, we used to all meet up and go down the Seaman's Mission, and then we'd have bacon, egg and whatever we could, English breakfast there. Then we'd go back and collapse into bed, and then we'd be up again at 4 o'clock and have a scare around the town, and then we'd all be back on stage again. And I'm not talking about an hour on, an hour off here. I'm talking an hour on and a 15, 20 minutes off, from say 7 o'clock until 2, 3 in the morning.
Mm. And what about Rod? Because I mean, certainly his early albums I think are phenomenal. Early-ish, you know, Every Picture Tells a Story, when he was much more rooted in a sort of folk experience, and his early albums with the Faces. Was he always a talent to you?
Yes, well, yes, yeah, I've got to say it. I mean, Rod dressed differently, looked. I mean, he had us wearing ladies' crew neck bloody jumpers. We used to go to Marks and Spencer's and buy these crew neck jumpers, all different colours to go and say, but they look great, you know. And he was just like that, and his hair, he was always doing his hair. In fact, he bought a record out, so I'll try to think of the name of the record, because I was in the studios cutting some tracks, and there was about an hour and a half left. In a Broken Dream,
Python Lee Jackson, which is a great record.
Yeah, he used the Dimensions to do that. I didn't know about that.
This
so
was your band.
Come out.
It's your band.
Yeah.
So because Python Lee Jackson was always weird, because it is Rod Stewart, but it's always has to be on the record Python Lee Jackson, and it's introduced as Python Lee Jackson. So that was your backing band playing with Rod. That was
playing with Rod in the studios that I'd just finished recording. But that was Rod, you know. I mean, that's the way he was.
That was just a bit of your downtime.
Exactly my downtime.
Yeah, listen, Jimmy, you want to claim a few bob off him for that, you know. Let's get a word from Vernon in Kitwell. I don't know if you know Vernon. Hello, Vernon. Hello, mate. You want a word with Jimmy, I think, yeah?
Hello, Vernon. How you doing, mate? Well, Vernon sounds a name to me. Go on. Oh, Vernon. Not that Vernon. Not the dad. Not dad. He used to... You're the young one. Your dad used to pick the mic up and go, hello. He was Welsh, wasn't he? He used to knock the end of the mic. Pup, 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 pup. That's it then. Shut up, go on, mate. No swearing, we're on radio.
So
fantastic.
So never mind hanging out with the Beatles and playing with Rod Stewart. You used to play at the California Social Club on Barnes Hill in Wheelie Castle.
We went to social club. It was a California pub.
Ah,
And
yeah.
his dad used to run the dance at the back there. I've heard. Yeah, was it's Hopwood.
Not to each
Hang
other.
on a minute, hang on a minute. Oh yeah, just a minute.
Vernon, great to hear from you. Thank you. Are you able to tell us this Rod Stewart story that he's on about?
Which one is this,
He
Vern? The one where I
mentioned the
sent you
raffle.
round with the raffle
Yeah, yeah.
and won it. Vern?
Yeah, he's gone. He's
Oh,
gone.
he's gone, all
Yeah,
right.
yeah. Go on. What's that story then? Is it clean?
No, Rod was going round with this raffle. We were doing a raffle, and Rod was going round with the raffle, and I can't think what it was. It was a couple of records. Oh, I know exactly what it was. He got some records in the van. A couple of them I wanted. One was a Big Bill Broomsy, and one was T-Bone Walker or something anyway. And Vernon, his dad, had bought a couple of records. They were all poppy melody kind of, mushy things. And this bloke won it, and I gave this bloke Rod's records. And I said to Rod, go and take the record, give him them records. I got them stuck into a bag and everything. And when he gets into the van, Rod goes, my records. I said, there they are, there then. And of course he turned around, I can't even think. It was like him opening the box and finding Des O'Connor LPs, where his Big Bill Broomsies and all his blues stuff was in there. So I ripped him off on that. But yeah,
there you go. Well, he took a bit of your studio time, so what the heck, and had a hit record off the back of it. So Jimmy Page as well, played on your record.
Yeah. Jimmy Page was doing some session work at the time with Strike Records, and as I said, we're doing an LP on Strike Records, and he specifically asked if I would do Sugar Baby, because the way the production came across, which I did, and he was a great fan of Big Jim Sullivan, so we did it. We did a great version. In fact, while we were doing it, there isn't in the original one, but there's a key change in this one, so they changed the key and he zips it up, and he opens up in it. We had a great time.
Yeah, and it's interesting, Jimmy. You have got a brilliant bluesy, ballsy rock and roll voice, and on a par with many of the people that you've worked with and that you're talking about. But you never did have that breakthrough hit record.
I was too busy running around the country. I mean, I had a wife, bless her, and kids, and I needed to work, so I would do. I mean, I did a gig in Strathpeffer, and that was on the Saturday night, and on the Sunday night I was at the Blue Lagoon in Bude in Cornwall.
So literally one end of Britain to the other.
Yeah, just travelling, and it was like that all the time. But at the end of the day, I was the most proficient band for gigs around the country at the time. And that might have been because we were cheap and cheerful. I don't really know, but we used to get away. I was very lucky because I always put on a good show no matter what happened.
Yeah, and so is that how you look at it? Do you kind of feel regret that you didn't quite have the success of a lot of the peers that you hung around with, or were you just grateful that you had many years gigging and playing the music that you loved?
Well, I'd like to have had the look of Rod and the women and everything else, and the money. But I don't. I do regret it to a degree because I've been married twice, and the second time was a total mistake, and I should have stayed where I was because I had a lovely lady. But it was the business that killed it. Stone did. But fortunately, my two lads stayed in the business. Darren stayed with had a band called the Black Cross Band, and the bass player in the Black Cross Band is now the bass player in the Rocky Berries, and we also had the drummer in the Rocky Berries is the old the old saxophone player Dennis Ryland. It's his son is in there, and my son's got
another lad. Yeah, you got the Ron Jeremy band.
The Ron Jeremy band down in Bronx Grove.
Yeah,
and he's had them 10 years. That all his mates have been there for 20 years. But it's all passed around. I mean, the music's there and it's passed around. I'm chuffed about that.
Now the story goes about Slade, who we mentioned,
right.
that you were part of a management company. I described you as the manager wrongly earlier, but you were part of a management company that sold Slade to Chas Chandler, who was also Jimi Hendrix's manager, For £1,000.
For £1,000.
What's that story?
Right, the story goes like this. There was an agency in Wolverhampton called Anita Anderson Agency. They used to run a gig in Wolverhampton called the Hen and Chickens. I think it was at Langley or something like that. Anyway, she needed a bit of help of getting down into the London scene and this, that and the other. And of course I was there and available, and I'd had some experience on this, and I'd known Mike Carroll and other people with gigs. So I joined the Anita Anderson Agency, not as an artist, but I joined him as on a management side, consultancy side. And she had the band Ambrose Slade. She started to we started to get some gigs down in London, and they went down to London, and of course Chaz saw them down there, was knocked out with them, and did a deal. £1,000 at that time, of course, was a lot of money. She'd also got a deal that she was going to get so much a percentage for the rest of their lives, you know, as they got more successful. That somehow fell out the end of the contract.
But again, the band had gone through a few changes already, because they'd been the in-betweens, hadn't they? They'd been a skinhead band at one time. Then they reformed as Ambrose Slade. Again, I mean, you said you could spot the talent in the Beatles, you could spot the talent in Rod. Was it obvious to you that Slade would be massive?
I think they were going to be successful as a band of the time. They weren't totally different than any other band. They just played it a little bit heavier and a little bit more exciting. You know, Nutty's got a good voice, and that's the way it went. And when all the frills and the bits come out, they changed to it as well. So they changed with the times and met with him. Good luck to them.
Yeah. And who would you say is the sort of the best act or the best performer that you've worked with? Because I mean, I mentioned that I'm sure you played on the same bill, for example, as the Rolling Stones.
Yeah. Well, the Rolling Stones and I, Rolling Stones sound like the Queen, don't I? We used to play Ken Collier's Jazz Club in London. And I think we did a Monday, they did a Wednesday. On a Tuesday was a band called the Pretty Things. And then Ken Collier would have his jazz bands on after that. But we used to all go to each other's gigs. So we saw each other a lot, and I wasn't as close to them probably as I was as on a one-to-one conversation with the Beatles maybe. But yeah, I mean, I knew them from the Ken Collier Club days, yeah.
Yeah, and who's the best then? Who's the best you've seen?
Who's the best I've seen? Who's the best I've been? Well, if I'm looking for a voice and I'm looking for a sound, it's going to be our Stevie Winwood. I love Stevie Winwood. I first heard him down at Aston University. We were topping the bill. He was second. He was with Spencer Davis Trio, Spencer Davis Group. But I was then associated with Chris Blackwell at Ireland, and I said to Chris, you must go and see this band because they're just incredible. I don't quite know what happened after that, but they did actually sign with him, and then they did keep on running.
And in fact, Stevie's solo records, I think, were all on Island Records as well, or certainly the big hits.
Yeah.
You know,
Stevie's a solo person, I would think. The Beatles as a band, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so you were gigging prolifically. A lot of your peers were going on and having hit records and so on. So, did you kind of fall out of it then? Did you just kind of run out of gigs, or decide you needed to settle down a bit more?
The game changed. Rock and roll, blues. Then we went into the 70s, which was still my kind of voice. It was the coloured kind of voice. I could still get on with that. And then it moved again into this new wave and whatever. And I was just completely, totally out of it. But I still carried on doing gigs, and did quite a few of them. But I was never at that time. I mean, you do get too old in this game. You know, look at me now. I mean, I've got 3 A-frames stuck out the front door here before we go.
What's that?
My A-frame. It's the only way I can get in. I fuse an A-frame.
Really? Do you?
Do you? No, no, I just thought I'd say.
You're looking perfectly all right here, man.
Rock and roll.
But you don't. Well, you said you do. I was going to say you don't regret it. You do regret a little bit of it, actually, don't you?
Well, look, it doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me that occasionally when you talk to people like Adrian, what's his name on WM radio?
Yeah, those are the
and
names.
You say to him, well, you know, I did the first rock and roll single, and he goes, who? When? Then he catches up on you.
This is Val and John Lowe have texted to say they used to live next door to you at Otwood, near Alchurch, 66 to 68. Do you remember?
Oh, yeah.
Val and John Lowe now live in Staffordshire.
Good God. Fantastic.
So, Well, listen, it's been great to have you in, Jimmy.
And
Some
it's been lovely to be here, man.
fabulous memories. And as I say, for my money, you are the, you know, the unfairly neglected, the forgotten voice of Birmingham's musical history. And I think your contribution to it, as I say, you know, that first single, Sugar Baby, the first ever rock and roll single to come out of Birmingham, to have played harmonica on the first ever Jamaican hit to make it big in the UK.
Yeah, I did the harmonica on PJ Proby's Hold Me, and there's a lot of harmonica playing I've done and other things, but I've never kind of rushed around and told everybody. It's, you either know or you don't know.
Yeah, I think you've got a lot to be proud of.
Yes, thank you very much.
Nice to have you in. We'll see you again.
Good. Is it check or cash?
It's the door marked exit over there, Jim.
Thank you very much.
You might need your frame.
You're like a brother to mine. Cheers, Adrian.
Can we hear a bit of Sugar Baby again for Jimmy? Let's just get a little taste of it. I just think it's a great vocal on this and a great bit of music as well. This is the first ever rock and roll record to come out of Birmingham 50 years ago, Sugar Baby by Jimmy Powell. And 50 years on, to me, it still sounds brilliant. See you again. Anytime we can be of any help to you, mate. Thanks, cheers.